Hi everybody, it's 9 o'clock and 9 o'clock is with me, Father Warner. We are in the Tuesday of the 34th week in Ordinary Time. We continue with our study of Revelations. We are in chapter 14, verse 14 to 19, and I've entitled today's teaching, The Doom of the Worshippers of the Beast. So let me read the text for you, and if you have your Bible open, there's nothing like that. Then I looked, and there was a white cloud, and seated on the cloud was one like the Son of Man, with a golden crown on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. Another angel came out of the temple, calling with a loud voice to the one who sat on the cloud, "Use your sickle and reap, for the hour to reap has come, because the harvest of the earth is fully ripe." So the one who sat on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the earth was reaped. Then another angel came out of the temple in heaven, and he too had a sharp sickle. Then another angel came out from the altar, the angel who has authority over fire. And he called with a loud voice to him who had the sharp sickle, "Use your sharp sickle and gather the clusters of the wine of the earth, for its grapes are ripe." So the angel swung his sickle over the earth and gathered the vintage of the earth, and he threw it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. The word of the Lord. Now, the text of today, my dear friends, really forms the tail end of the central section of Revelation. The central section of Revelation is chapter 12, verses 1 to chapter 14, verse 20. And it portrays really the power of evil represented by a dragon who is in opposition to God and to his people. Now, in chapter 14, we'll see the chapter really tells us that those who worship the beast, now in the book of Revelation, the beast is the Roman Empire. Don't attribute it to anything else. Remember the text in its context, in its historical context. So, chapter 14 tells us that those who worship the beast will soon be doomed. God's eternal purpose is to be fulfilled, and judgment therefore is at hand. And it is for this reason that God the Creator alone must be worshipped, not the emperor. Remember that the book of Revelations was written at a time when the early Christians were being persecuted in Rome and in Asia Minor, in the western part of modern day Turkey, for their faith. They were forced to worship the emperor. Therefore, the beast is Nero, or the Roman emperor, or the empire. And the dragon that you will hear of so often is the tool that the Roman emperor uses, namely, he works through Satan. Satan is the tool in which he uses to oppress the early Christians. Now, today's passage, like much of Revelation, obviously seems a bit puzzling at first. Using very graphic images, John describes the end of the world in terms of a harvest. It is a vision of gathering together the righteous and the good, followed by judgment on the wicked. The actual destruction of the wicked pagans will be treated more fully later on. We are now in chapter 14. You'll see it treated more in chapter 19, verse 11. We'll do it during this week. Now, this text, which we just read, chapter 14, verse 14 to 19, is in line with what Jesus also says in the gospel about judgment, how the sheep shall be separated from the goats. Now, our reading today is actually based on a text from the prophet Joel, which talks about grain and grape harvest. The text in Joel reads something like this. It says, "Put in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Go in, tread, for the winepress is full. The vats overflow, for their wickedness is great." You can read it in Joel chapter 4, verse 13. So obviously the author of the book of Revelation has borrowed from Joel chapter 4, verse 13, or about the end times. Now, in his vision, John today sees one like the Son of Man sitting on a cloud. The Son of Man obviously refers to Christ, and the cloud indicates a divine presence. This is God's throne. He wears, we are told, a crown of gold on his head. representing a golden wreath of victory, his victory, Christ's victory over death and sin. And then we are told that in his hand he carries a sharp sickle. Now, the sickle used by the Israelites for cutting grain consisted usually of a flint, or it consisted of an iron blade which was attached to a curved handle of wood or a bone. The sickle is the tool for harvesting, and Christ as judge comes to reap his harvest, gathering in, first of all, as we are told, the elect. He gathers the elect. The elect are those who have been faithful to his word. Now, the reaping of the harvest symbolizes the gathering of the elect in the final judgment. That's what it really means. Now, just as farmers, and you'll see this, just as farmers harvest the crops they plant, we also cannot expect to harvest good in places where we have sown evil. You know, our life on earth, my dear friends, is very short. It is a time, our life is a time of planting, and it is exactly what we plant, the way we choose to live, the choices we make every day, that determines what the harvest of our lives would really look like. Now, in the second part of today's reading, we see another angel also with a sharp sickle coming out from the temple in heaven, the place where God has his dwelling. This other angel is in charge, we are told, of the fire. You know, in Jewish tradition, various angels were responsible for particular aspects of the world, including wind, water, and the bottomless pit. Here, in this text, fire is closely associated with the idea of judgment. Why? Because fire both destroys the bad, fire also purifies the good. Now, the angel of fire left the altar where the prayers of the persecuted and martyred are carried up to God, leaves that altar. Now, judgment comes to those who made these martyred people suffer. The one with the sharp sickle is then instructed, we are told, to cut and gather in all the ripe grapes, which are then put into huge wine presses to be crushed. The treading of the grapes was a common symbol in the Old Testament for carrying out of God's judgment, symbolizing the doom, therefore, of the ungodly. You can see this in Joel from the text from which this text gets its inspiration, also from Isaiah chapter 63, verse 1 to 6. You will also see some part of this again, the concepts mentioned in Revelations chapter 19, verse 11 to 21. Now, in order for us not to get too attached to the imagery, because that's what many people do with the book of Revelation, they get too attached to the imagery. In order for us not to get attached to the imagery, we must dwell on the essence of the message itself, and that message is very clear. There is nothing that we can do that does not have its repercussions. For every good deed that we do and for every wrong deed that we do, we shall somehow get to receive a boomerang effect later. It's going to come back to us. The good we do comes to us, the bad we do comes to us. Now, the theme of final judgment is one that goes right through the text as we approach the end of our liturgical year. By the end of this week, we will be the end of our liturgical year. We then begin the season of Advent. Therefore, it is a time for reflection on where we stand before God and before also each other. You know, these reminders are not meant to frighten us, but really they are reminders to help us to prepare and above all to be ready at all times. I hope you liked this teaching, and if you did, please share it with your friends. I know Revelations is a difficult book. I've tried to break it down as much as I can for you. So share this video, like it, leave your comments, especially on the teaching of today. And for those of you who have not subscribed to this channel, all you got to do is just hit that subscribe button on YouTube, and there's a little bell icon. Click on that and you'll get a daily reminder when we go live. I'll see you again tomorrow, everybody. 9 o'clock every day is with Father Warner. Bye now.